COVID-19 has had a profound effect, not just on healthcare and the economy, but all tentacles and in public workers' lives too, in the public sphere. One being the Department of Children and Families. So we have someone here today that can talk a little bit about that, the challenges that the agency is facing, the steps they're taking, and just anything else that we as society can do to help these children and these families. So Ken, if you don't mind, could you please introduce yourself, talk to me about your title and what it is that you do at the Department of Children and Families.
Sure, Adam. So first of all, nice to meet you virtually in this arena. So my name is Ken Mysolgland. I'm currently the Bureau Chief for External Affairs for the Department of Children and Families. I oversee our communications office, our legislative work, and our Office of Community Relations, which is the unit to handle questions and thoughts and inquiries from individuals in the public. So I've been fortunate to be with the department, over 30 years, and certainly we're facing some very tough times in our communities, to say the least.
Well, I appreciate your time and your expertise today.
Sure.
You just said facing really hard times, so I'm going to just drill down on the biggest one. I know you have several, and we'll get into those, but what would you say is the biggest challenge DCF is facing now because of COVID-19?
It's an interesting question. First of all, I think that really we have to give an acknowledgement to our staff, from our frontline staff and our investigators to the individuals in our 24/7 facilities, Solnet South and Solnet North, as well as our care line that operates 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, for all of their continued work during this pandemic. We also want to keep in mind that the department is open. We are actively taking new reports of child abuse and neglect. Daily, we are responsible for approximately 13,000 families across the state who we are providing support to. And so probably the biggest challenge we're facing right now is we recognize that only in those most extreme circumstances are we conducting in-person or face-to-face visits. So the challenge underneath that is the ongoing assessments and how you accomplish those, of how the families are doing and the well-being and safety of the virtual environment. I think we've done an excellent job so far. We have partnered with our private providers and other community partners across the state, as well as our sister state agencies, to discuss best case practice. We have been on national calls and have collaborated with jurisdictions across the country to see what other states are doing, how successful they have been, all during these periods of time. So the challenges that we have are also turning into excellent opportunities for us to enhance our work, continue to build upon the relationships that we have, and really redefine the Child Protective Services work that we are able to do in our communities, along with our partners that we have.
So can you please talk to me about these, the virtual visits? Well, I know they differ from in-person visits because you're doing it electronically,
Sure.
But how are they different? And of course, there are going to be some downsides to it. Can you talk to me about those downsides and how you're trying to adjust to those?
So the virtual visits are a lot of like what we're doing right here. We have either FaceTime with families. We will invite them either to a Zoom meeting or Microsoft Teams. Actually, Microsoft Teams is what has been authorized by the state to use. And we will talk to the individuals over the video monitor or FaceTime. At times, we'll ask them to show us the house. We will interact with our children along these same parameters and make the best of what we have available. I do want to pause there and indicate to you and remind everybody that is going to see this interview that the department will in fact respond in person and conduct face-to-face interviews with families up to and including in their own homes if there's a circumstance that arises which cannot be resolved remotely. So the high majority of our work has been since mid-March remote fashion. But when a child's safety is in question or a situation is escalating where we cannot resolve it remotely, we are responding in person. The challenges of that is we're not necessarily seeing all of the household at the same time. The challenges of that is, that there's no, I think, substitute for that direct face-to-face communication that you can have with people. But we are confident that along with the other individuals that we collaborate with during our casework, that we are being successful in engaging with families. In fact, a number of families have come back and said to us that they are very appreciative of the way that we have been supporting them. And our workers feel that in many ways they have more frequent contact with the children and families they're serving due to the updates in technology and the ways we are utilizing it.
So that's very helpful to understand how do these virtual visits occur. I want to just before I ask this next question, I just want to set up with a little context. So this was from CT News Junkie on March 25th through reporting, and calls regarding allegations of abuse and neglect to the care line have dropped over the past 10 days. And again, that was on March 25th, since schools have closed. Typically, the line gets about 314 calls per day, and those are 126 new reports of child abuse or neglect. Now they're getting an average 150 calls per day, and those are 39 new reports. So to really sum that up, it's basically what the reporting is, that 50% less calls. Are you still seeing that trend since the COVID time? Is there less calls, or is it increased? And if so, do you have any of those numbers?
Sure. So we actually took just a look at April 2019 to April 2020, so to give the same month comparison. And what we are seeing now is overall calls to our care line are down about 47%. Mm-hmm. Overall new reports of child abuse and neglect are down about 55%. Mm-hmm. So in March, we had a decline. When you compare April to April, we see a more statistically significant decline. Again, I think using those data points, this is a great reminder to everybody in our community that now is the time for everyone to call, FaceTime, try to conduct remote technology with those families and those kids that you may be concerned about. Certainly, Child Protective Services is here for reports of abuse and neglect as particular individuals feel they have concerns about a particular family. But what we are also seeing across our communities is, because of the pandemic, family members, providers, non-traditional individuals are supporting families in very unique, wonderful ways to calm down those stressors, address the issues honestly before hopefully they rise to a report of child abuse and neglect needing to be made. So are we concerned about the number of reports and calls being down? Certainly. And that's a direct relation to, we know, children not being visible, especially in our school and daycare environments. While at the same time, we are really talking to individuals across the state about what they can do to support families during the pandemic. And there are some great stories out there.
And so I think that's such a valuable point that you made about the community taking some responsibility and helping out, in the situation. What are some of the signals that an average person should be looking for that's not a trained, reporter? What should we be looking for?
Sure. So trust yourself, right? Trust your instincts, trust your gut reaction. If you're talking to somebody, you observe them in your community and they appear to be stressed out. Maybe they're tired. They're indicating that, I'm home with my kids all the time, or my partner and I are not necessarily getting along, or we're not seeing eye to eye on particular things. You know what? Spend some time talking with that person and then call them back the next day, or see if, maybe you could go for a walk with them, obviously while maintaining social distance right around the neighborhood. I have a large family, and I talk with my family members pretty frequently about, who in your communities have you been concerned about? Well, pick up the phone, do a FaceTime call. I think what we're trying to say is act on your concerns. Don't wait. Trust yourself, trust your instincts, whether you're a family member, a professional, a neighbor, or, just you see a family in a grocery store that looks like they're struggling. By all means, you take the first step. Adam, as we briefly talked offline, the department, in collaboration with the United Way and our community providers has established a talkitoutct.com site. The campaign that we've established is entitled "When It Builds Up, Talk It Out." And what we've done is we've established a phone number that you can call when you as a parent are feeling stressed, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you feel like, you know what, I just need somebody to talk to. And the line is really geared towards having somebody at the other end that will pick up the phone when you call it and offer that support. Kind of talk you through your day, offer some suggestions on how you can stay supported. And if it leads to some other tangible and concrete resources being needed, such as information on food or housing or employment, the staff who pick up the phone will also connect you to those sources as well. That number is 1-833-258-5011. So it's 833-258-5011. The quick website is talkitoutct.com. So I bring that up in the greater context of, we know reports are low. You asked, what are the signs that we want to look for? So the line is also a way you can refer individuals to get some support if in fact they need it.
No, thank you. And we'll make sure to include that as a resource in the article also that complements this video. And so this next question is maybe more broad than just because of COVID-19, but I asked this, we recently did an interview dealing with domestic violence. And I had this goes along with the same type of question. For what do you say to the person that they're thinking this? Like, look, maybe there's something up, maybe there's not, but when I do this, this could open up, a whole lot of hurt for this, if I'm wrong. So I think maybe there's something going on, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, there's going to be an investigation and we're going to have this, and I could really hurt this family. So, this is a personal issue. You get the train of thought here. How do you answer that? What do you say to somebody that's thinking this way? Sure.
I think it's maybe a common concern that individuals may have before contacting the department. I think in some of this, it rests with the messaging that we're giving to the family. So if you are a neighbor and you believe that something is happening in the household next to you, as a step before calling us, can you have a conversation with the mom or the dad or the partners in the home to say, I'm concerned, and is there something I can do to assist? Or can you get word to the kids that, you're worried about them, or you want to be there to support them? If in fact you feel that a report needs to be made to us, I think that we want to recognize that our first job as a department here is to ensure child safety. But Adam, we do that by empowering and supporting the family. The perception we know at times of our department is that we're the place that you call removed, and in fact it's quite the opposite. In over 91% of the cases that we get involved in, children actually remain safely at home. And if children have to be removed due to the most extreme circumstances, over 60% of the time, children do go home. And if they have to be placed temporarily away from their parents or separated from their parents, almost 50% of the time now in Connecticut, you're placed with a relative or somebody that you know. So we want to take the edge off the concern that if you report to us, children are going to be removed. Look at us as that supportive arm. Look at us as that agency whereby when you have a concern and we get involved, we are offering that family an array of services that we can administer, that we contract with private providers within our community to deliver. And at the end of the day, children are stronger, they're safer, parents are empowered, and they are connected to the right services. So they can live their lives and raise their children as they wish without having that involvement of our department.
Yeah. I want to pivot just a little bit to the actual DCF staff and the workers. And it sounds like you said, in extreme cases, they have to do in person, which does not seem to be as often, but they still have to go out. So do you feel that the workers are protected, they have enough protective gear right now? And maybe I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I don't know if you know this. Do you know how many staff members have been tested positive COVID-19? Of course, you can't make a direct correlation that it's when they went to one of the houses, but just talking about your staff, their safety, and what's going on with them.
Sure. So I think there's a number of questions there I think we can answer. First of all, yes, our staff do have personal protective equipment, PPE. That includes our staff in our Solnit North and South facilities. That includes our staff at the Caroline, and those individuals in our regional offices are deemed essential level 1 staff that will be physically responding in person, depending on the nature of the circumstance. Mm-hmm. So we do have, like I said, the PPE. The decision to have staff respond is made in conjunction with the worker supervisor, their manager, and another administrator to ensure we're making the right decisions for the right families. It is difficult. We realize that so much of our work over the past 6-7 weeks has really balanced the mission of the department, which is protecting children, while ensuring the safety and health of the workforce. And that is a very delicate balance. Again, as I think I said at the beginning of the interview, we have the highest regard for our staff in the way everyone has responded and collaborated throughout this time. We cannot say that enough. I'm on the executive team with Commissioner Durantis, and daily we talk about just the great things that our staff are doing, the efforts that they are putting forth.
Okay. All right, so this is the 2-part question. So we'll start off with the short end and the long end. In the next just several months, I'm just using it as an arbitrary benchmark, but in the next several months, what are some of the objectives for the department? I mean, you're still just stabilizing right now. And then I'd like to also think longer term, because this could go on, I hope not, but this could go on for a year plus. So what are some of the longer term objectives you have to increase the calls that are coming in? And we talk about the community, but there's going to have to be more, I'm sure. So just short term objectives and long term aims that the department has.
So I think short term, we want to continue to promote the supportive services that are out there in the community. That's why I brought up earlier the talkitoutct.com site in the campaign. We are still looking on a daily basis and assessing our casework practices and policies and how effective we are, and what additional supports and services not only do our families need, but what else does our workforce need to, like I said, carry the mission out of the department while ensuring their safety and welfare. We have started internal discussions and some brief discussions with our partners about what it would look like to begin the process to have our offices begin fully functioning again like they were before the pandemic. Our offices never closed. We just have a very, very small amount of individuals physically in the office, and over 85% of our staff at home teleworking. So short term, let's continue to support our families, get the messaging out into the communities about where families can turn to on their own for help, ensuring our workforce is safe, and taking a look daily at our operations, and also with an eye towards a more full complement of staff in the offices. So long term, that's a very interesting question. I think we've learned some excellent ideas during this period of time about how we can conduct our work differently and what that work would look like. So the question then becomes, how do you embed those practices in our work over the long term based on what we learned in the short term? I think that part of what the department is looking at long term is preparing for those days when children are going to become much more visible again, and that's when we believe we will have our own surge in new reports of child abuse and neglect. We've collaborated with some other state agencies across the country who have gone through the pandemic somewhat before us and are looking at where their child protective services have seen a spike in reports and what their response is. So I hope that gets to your question. Planning daily, it really does.
It did, and unfortunately for you, because you answered it so well, I have another follow-up question with that.
Oh, here we go.
Well, I mean, you make a great point about that. There most likely will be another surge, and that's going to be for a couple of reasons. It could be when everybody starts to come back into cases, schools open. Could also be if we have to close down again and this happens again, and there's going to be. The point is, it's most likely there's a very high probability that you're going to have a surge. I know you're saying you're in the planning stages, but what are some things that other states are doing? What are some of your ideas that you have now to prepare for this?
Again, those conversations are really in the very, very initial stage. And I think the best planning is, first of all, to recognize this may in fact come. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? How can we now ensure that the families that we are involved with have the services that they need, so there are not further incidents of abuse and neglect with our existing families, which then will, I think, assist later on when children are becoming more visible. So it's really about, let's take care of what we know and then consider what the plan will be when the increase comes. So again, our staffing, Adam, across the state is, set according to particular caseload standards and volumes into our child abuse and neglect care line. So if tomorrow the calls became at 100% again, we believe that we would be in a position to, handle the reports. It's how much above and beyond what our normal volume would be is the point of concern, but we will have a plan. We will actively work towards that point in time if it comes, along with our members, like I said, in the community. So the entire community responds to that, not just one single agency.
Yeah, very fair. All right, so you've been very generous with your time, so thank you. Last question for you, and it's really just throwing the ball in your court. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to address? Is there just something that you think needs to be out there publicly, cleared up, whatever it may be? It's just your time.
Sure. So again, we really appreciate having our message out in the media about the department and our mission and our goals. Again, just to reiterate, we're here to support families. We're here to empower parents while we protect children and ensure their safety. And, certainly we're the state agency where reports of abuse and neglect are called into. We also like to think that protecting children is everybody's responsibility throughout the community. And, we may be the Child Protective Services agency, but we're part of the greater Child Protective Services system. The Talk It Out line, again, 1-833-258-5011. Operators are there in English and in Spanish. It has been a wonderful resource so far for families. Certainly when in doubt, give us a call, take that step to, protect that child that you're looking at, and you may have some uncomfortable thoughts about the way that they are being treated. You're never wrong, certainly, for calling us, and we're here, and the department is actively working every day to look at our practices, collaborate with our partners, our sister state agencies, the governor's office, to ensure that we have the right supports in place for not only our families but as we continue to say, our workforce as well. And we will get through this. We're going to get through this together. And we have gotten through this together so far. But we're going to remain humble and keep pushing forward, certainly.
Well, Ken, I thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. And for all the work the department's doing. I know you are all in a tough position like we all are. But appreciate you doing the work every day.
You bet. Thank you so much for having us on.